Hey everybody, thanks for joining the HR in Action podcast. Today I have Alfredo Martin, and we're going to be talking about various HR topics and leadership topics. Alfredo is the founder of LOA Mindset Solutions, and so we'll just jump right into it. So Alfredo, if you don't mind kind of introducing yourself to start off, and then we'll go from there.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, Alfredo Martin, founder of LOA Mindset Solutions. I've been in HR going on 13 years now. Specifically, have focused probably the last 10 years in the leave and accommodation space. So it's been quite interesting. Had an opportunity to work with various organizations, and thank you, Aaron, for the invite and be able to just talk about. Share some stories, my experiences, and kind of my perspective of where we're at as HR professionals.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me more about the type of work you do. What does it mean to do that kind of work?
Geez. It's so leave of absence. Anybody who's needed to take a leave of absence, do surgery, care for a family member, have a baby, you name it. That's kind of my role. My specialty has been going to organizations, be able to look at what works, what doesn't, help them with in-house solutions. That's kind of my focus. And obviously, there's a lot of work. And then on top of that, there's workplace accommodations, which is interesting as well. So that's how I lost my hair. This is 13 years of leave and accommodation. I've been got an opportunity, like I said, be very creative with trying to basically just build a foundation for some of these organizations and provide the best employee experience, and also for the administrators that are actually doing the work. That's kind of what I've been focusing on the last 10 years. Mm-hmm.
Nice. So that, dude, I've got some workplace accommodation stories, so we'll get to those. I'm sure you have some too, so that'll be interesting to share. So I guess maybe a good place to kind of start off in the discussion is just some of the, I guess, what are some of the fundamentals of this, or lessons learned? What have you learned, and what companies need to make sure they're doing? I remember when we talked. Mm-hmm. Previously, it was, when you think of work, when I think of like leave of absence, workplace accommodation, it's maternity, paternity leave, it's FMLA, right? Or mm-hmm. medical, but it's, I remember from talking before, it's a lot more than just that, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe you can talk to what are some of the things that you've learned, or what are the focus areas of the area?
Yeah, I mean, so when I go into these organizations, I think the foundation's not there. So when I talk about foundation do you have from your initial request, an employee being able to request their leave of absence or workplace accommodation, to how we're receiving the information, what are we providing, how is that follow-up, and then return to work or close that. So that foundation needs to be there. It doesn't matter the size company, even globally. It should be kind of those are the basics, at least from my point of view. And that's the hardest part. Not having that, it creates a lot of chaos. It's very complex. So being able to break it up in these stages is very important. Yeah. But again, most recently, I think the issue or the challenges have been where you have a lot of leaders or managers, directors overseeing now this space, the leave and accommodation space, with no background experience. And somehow, whether it's the CHRO, CEO, CFO, they think it's just that easy. Okay, you do benefits, go ahead and oversee the leave and accommodations. Not a problem if they're going to be engaged, if they're going to educate themselves as well.
Right.
But what happens is it's a very complicated world, and you get a lot of leaders who are hesitant to make decisions, not listening to the actual people that are doing the work, providing that support, resources.
Yeah.
So those are some of the challenges that I've seen just overall recently in the last few years. So
yeah. So that's good. So, okay, so then now we've got three basic areas. So I would say the beginning part is the request, right? Is
right.
employees knowing about being able to request it and actually being able to do the request. I would guess the harder part of that is actually getting the communication out so that employees know when and how to request, as opposed to just the logistics of the process. But is there any kind of best practices, I guess, that you've seen or where you help organizations in terms of specific tools that they use? I mean, is it just as simple as like, well, you use SharePoint, so create a SharePoint form, or you're in Google, so create a Google form and they can request? I guess it probably depends on the size of the company too.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. Like I said, what I do, my solutions are not, I'm not reinventing the wheel. Right? A leave of absence request form is very simple. You either create it through PDF fillable form, have it, it's a quick or a link to the SharePoint where an employee is able to request whatever they're trying to request, right? Leave of absence or workplace accommodation.
Yeah.
You would think, me going to different organizations, that this would be foundational, right? It's already in there. That's not the case. So that when you don't have a request form sounds so simple. It's like, well, what's the big deal? It's a big deal because now you have employees providing 3 paragraphs of what they actually need, and then they're disclosing information that they probably shouldn't be disclosing.
Right.
And then you have on the other side the administrator trying to read 3 paragraphs. And again, when we have 50, 100 cases, active cases, it's a lot. And a lot of emails coming back and forth. So if you miss that part, and you're going to struggle. And that's the first thing. One of the first things I do is make sure we establish a request form. Where is this going to live? Can you print it? In case, you have employees are not tech savvy, is it easy to print out? Are we obviously promoting that, hey, this request is out there? And then obviously informing your HR leaders and supervisors, managers as well. But that is very crucial in the process.
Yeah. So I didn't even think about it. So I was thinking more because I guess my project manager engineering background. I was thinking more of the logistics of the request, but the devil's in the details, right? It's actually what are the questions in the form that you're asking to make sure you're getting the right information in the right way. I would assume like it's inherently PII. But yeah, you get someone emailing you. Next thing you know, they're telling you about all these, details about a surgery or some medical thing. Now you got to like figure out how to, handle all that as opposed to having a night. So what are there any, like, if I was a HR leader trying to create a form for my company, I mean, I'd probably just go to ChatGPT and ask it, but who knows if it actually is going to give me all the right fields. Are there any particular kind of gotchas or things you've learned over the years? It's like, make sure you ask this question, which isn't kind of a standard one, or the sort of like, obviously you need the name and the, the issue and whatever, but I imagine there's some tact or skill that goes into making it effective so you get the right information up front.
Yeah, I definitely have implemented pretty much kind of the same request form for a few organizations. Basic information, but even then, we always have to, I'm always trying to think 3 steps ahead. Employee may not have updated their profile in Workday or in ADP, so getting the most recent information, address, personal email address, not work email. It's very important to make sure we have that. Phone number, and then just in case, work location, because now it's coming up more and more where employees are working remotely. So make sure that we do have the right work location. And then from there is my request. We don't need to be specifying anything related to FMLA. Okay, so this is the one thing that I think some leaders get this wrong, that we need to put FMLA out there. The employee, we have to assume that they don't know anything about FMLA. Some of the questions or options would be all medical, care for a family member, who's that family member, is it pregnancy, bonding leave, military, USERA for military duty, personal even the work comp. You can use this as well as it's a work comp related case or request. And then, obviously it specifies it's continuous, intermittent, a reduced schedule. And then really, obviously, last day work, if it's applicable, first day out, and estimated last day on leave. Mm-hmm. And then have, obviously, there's, depending on the organization, if they're going to use sick time, vacation time, you want to make sure you have an accrual section there. And then obviously be able to have the employee actually sign off, dated, and then that, give them instruction on where that's going to go or email to. So basic, right? But now we have to look at the administrator. Once I get all that, then I'm able to have all the information I need and then start looking at eligibility and go on to the next stage.
So it sounds like the key is then you're getting all these specific, you don't need any of the real details about what the situation is. No. You don't want that at all, really, then.
Correct.
No. So you don't have a field of like, tell me what the situation is. That's when you get all the juicy stuff that you don't want.
Right. No, that's not, especially not in the intake part. That will come, again, if you manage it in-house, you will ask for medical certification. Again, that specific medical certification, which is, from the Department of Labor, it's provided. There's even those questions, right, are very just like it doesn't really go into a lot of detail, just enough for us to be able to determine, okay, does this going to fall under a leave of absence, FMLA? So yeah, that's why that's very important because you would be, if you don't have that, like I say, that's where you get a lot of employees just disclosing information. Managers getting involved in that communication is another no. But yeah, those are some of the challenges. Yeah. Basic,
but the manager would have to know about it. I mean, in terms of the impact to the project, right, and support.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, when you have a process, the part of the administrator, so once we get the request, yes, you want the employee to somehow at least give a heads up to the manager. Again, there are many situations where they don't feel comfortable. They may have a strained relationship with their manager or supervisor. So, yeah, I mean, they're not doing anything wrong by submitting the requests. And it's our job on the administrator side to inform the manager and probably have the business partner involved in the communication. Just John Smith has requested a leave of absence.
But they don't need to know the details.
No.
Right, exactly. No, yeah, so you keep that within HR for sure.
Absolutely.
Because I've had discussions with other people where, especially in smaller businesses, and I've worked in smaller businesses mostly outside of when I worked for the government, but in smaller businesses, the managers usually take on a much more substantial role in terms of performance management and, employee interface. I would argue that any good leader should have a good level of trust and rapport and connection relationship with their employees, not just, I know their name and their job, right? It's more than that. But this is one of those cases where it's like, no, you're probably better off not knowing some of this information. Let HR keep that. The less people know, the better.
Correct. Yeah, it's our responsibility as leave administrators or professionals. We're the gatekeepers, right? And it should be that way. Yeah. Would the manager probably know that somebody's going through cancer? Could be, of course. Yes. We're not going to say no. They're not going to know anything. But again, it's our job to still have that communication that we're trying to protect the employee's health information moving forward. So
right. Mm-hmm. So now you've got the form, you've got all the information. Now they're actually going on leave. I guess there's really not much to talk about in terms of they're just gone. They're doing their thing. I guess there's probably some kind of regular check-in that you might need to do, but that I would assume comes more into play when you're talking about accommodations, right? And that's where the stories come in, I think, because I've got some. But now you got to figure out. Let's say it was an accommodation request. Now you actually have to figure out the accommodations. Do you have any good stories or examples or best practices from all the years you've been doing this?
Yeah. I mean, I have
Without
plenty.
attribution, obviously. Let's not get ourselves in
Yeah,
trouble.
no. There. I mean, I'm not obviously going to name the organization, but I'm going to name one. I'm going to talk about a story that I think this is the reason why I'm still doing what I'm doing.
Cool.
Very tragic from my point of view. So I had just gotten into this organization, project work, revamping their entire leave and accommodation. I don't even think they even had an accommodation process at that time.
Mm-hmm.
1 month in, I find out this employee had been sleeping on her desk. Like she would sleep on her desk, like she'll fall asleep. And we didn't get note of
In the
this
middle of the
until
day, not like
yeah, like during her work hours.
okay. Not that she was
Well,
sleeping at work like at night. We had an employee who actually brought an air mattress into they
oh
worked in a
no,
lab
no,
and they actually
yeah.
slept there overnight sometimes and then they would shower in the work
Oh wow,
shower.
no, yeah,
Okay.
no, definitely not
All
that
right,
case.
good.
She had
Okay.
so
So
obviously we were finding out what was going on.
yeah,
She had
yeah,
a lot of
something
health
going on.
issues.
Yeah.
So the benefits team were not aware, or the leave team were not aware. The business partners were aware, along with the supervisor. And what was happening is this lady, older lady, she had a oxygen tank. I mean, she was going through cancer treatment,
Okay. Chemo.
chemo,
Medical.
all that, and then somehow nobody. Again, this is the importance of making sure that even your HR team, your business partners, your employee relation partners are well aware. They're trained and also aware of a process. If there isn't a process, you can't also
Right.
point the finger. So this employee could have been basically it was going on for longer, but it had gone worse the last month. Um, by the time we got to her and we brought her into the office, yes, it was very obvious that she was going through a lot. We had encouraged her to go through a leave of absence. If that wasn't, I was provide her that option as well under FMLA because they had great benefits as well, short term disability, and or a workplace accommodation, right? So we had a discussion with her son, and so her communication to us is like, look, I'm ready to kind of retire. I think that's this time. I'm gonna spend time with my grandkids in California, and kind of that's it, right off in the sunset. 2 weeks, thankfully, she did go the leave of absence route in the beginning, just to make sure we kept her benefits still active. She passes away in 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
Um, you know, the what ifs, right? If we had our people trained, if we had an actual process, if I would have come in by 2 months at least before, we would have obviously those conversations would have started right there in the beginning when we knew that she was struggling. Um, and it was tough. It was tough because again, we got to see her. I got to meet
Right.
her and her son, and just knowing the fact that she was ready to retire, that she was willing to go that route, and not be
Yeah.
able to really enjoy it. So that's one of the toughest stories, yeah, about uh,
Yeah.
trying to do the right thing, but again, just because you don't have a process or you're not promoting that you have a workplace accommodation process, educating, training your team members, your leaders, yeah, that was
Right.
tough.
Yeah, no. Well, that's not a funny or fun
No,
story.
sorry, no,
Right.
I didn't want to
No,
bring
no,
it
no.
down,
Getting all serious. No, but
yeah,
that I think it's a great example of and from a leadership perspective because I'm super into leadership development.
right.
There's that compliance and HR law side, which I actually have a class on that. We teach leaders, and I try to make it not. I don't know that you can make it fun. I can't say that we make it fun, but we make it informative because what I like I went when I went back to do my when I got into HR and then I went and got the degree in IO psychology and actually I guess it was the SHRM SCP cert maybe that really
Mhm.
I guess illuminated a lot of it for me where I started learning about these laws. Um, then all of a sudden you're not just doing these processes in an organization for compliance because they just tell you to. You understand the reasons behind it, right? Correct. A lot of it comes down to the Civil Rights Act of 1963, of course, right? Title 7, if I got that right. So, but because you can't discriminate, and so that weaves into all kinds of recruiting and these kind of accommodation more ADA and those types of things. But I think that's huge for leaders that they need to understand. And it could have just been as easy as them recognizing, this person obviously has something going on. I can let HR know because there are options for her that she doesn't just have to struggle through this, right? Yeah. And then that's, so it works both sides. It's making sure the leaders understand that. The leaders have their responsibility, in my opinion, to help communicate that and get it back to HR. You can't expect 8 people in HR to be walking the halls and talking to people and knowing all these things. But having the process be easier, and even having employees kind of know that these things are available to them.
Absolutely.
And short-term, long-term disability stuff. I mean, you don't have to understand it all just to know that it's there, I guess, to know that you can ask the question.
Yeah. Which, I think this is it leads to my point of what I really wanted to make a point of is this space alone. Maybe I'm biased because I've been doing this for a long time, but and I talk a lot about processes, but it's the human aspect that we wear those different hats. I know I hear that a lot in HR, but we are a counselor. We're having conversations with employees going through cancer who had lost their baby. These are not like transactional. This is not a very transactional process or function. It's very emotional, right? Even on the administrative side. And this is what I want leaders, CFOs, CEOs, if you guys are watching this, you cannot just have random people take over this function or these functions. Besides the risk, it's the human aspect. If you really care, everybody talks about employee experience. This is one that you do not outsource. You try to keep it in-house. You try to build a supported team. And I'm not just talking about EAP. Those are great, employee assistance program, but really having dedicated people in this space to be able to support your workforce, right? With their leave of absence, with workplace accommodations. It's doable. I've seen it. But I think the kind of had lost focus or we just think that anybody could step in these roles and say, oh yeah, they'll do it. It's more than that. So
yeah. But if they are going to outsource, they should outsource to you.
Not necessarily, because I definitely, I'm not a believer in the third party vendor administration.
Well, so you help build the process. You're talking about actually executing it.
So I go in, my focus has always been, can we keep this program or these programs in-house? How do we do that? Okay, let me see I'll do my assessment, an inventory of whatever they have going on or whatever they have available in the organization. Do we have software programs that we could utilize to make it maybe a case management, which I've gotten creative with, without really spending additional money, because I know that's always an issue, right? So, and then from there, do you have the actual team or team member that could do this job moving forward, or do we need to bring dedicated support, or do we really, which I've gotten more and more realistic with leaders, that says, okay, yes, what I used to do probably 12 years ago with Google Sheet or Excel spreadsheets, I was able to get away with it in the beginning of my career, but I can't sell that. It's too complicated now, and that's where I would definitely bring in a leave management platform. There's plenty of them now that exist. They're very sophisticated. They're able to do what it needs to do without outsourcing. And again, the great thing about that, it's a lot cheaper. You have control of your leave of absence and workplace accommodations, and it's less complicated in the sense of once you outsource, there's too many people involved. It's too expensive. The return on investment, I've done plenty of benchmarking assessment on myself. It's just not there. And again, if employees or organizations are really wanting to sell the idea of the employee experience, nobody's going to care about your employees more than your actual team members that are actually in the organization, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these systems, I would assume some of the big HRIS systems probably have modules for this, and I'm not looking to ask you to plug any particular software, but I'm just curious, like, do you have an example of what these softwares do, or one of, that you work with?
Well, we didn't say so. The big ones out there, Workday, ADP, they have a tracking module more than anything. It's not very. It doesn't go into the specifics of actual leave of absence, case management. Yeah, it's not a case management platform, right? So the ones I've worked with, the big ones, AbsenceSoft, Stira, Cocoon, Till, these are great leave management platforms where, yes, 60% of your administrative work will be cut down. I've seen it, I've gone through it myself. So, yes, I'm a big believer, and there's flexibility where they could customize, right, some of your needs as an organization, which is great. But it does a lot of the automation, right? Where, hey, Aaron, you need to take a leave of absence. Here's the link. It takes you through a portal. We get notified. It's all interactive with, it's integrated with a Workday system with ADP. So it calculates eligibility. 1 or 2 clicks, boom, sends off the leave packet to you. It creates a task. Now I'm following up just through my fancy portal. The employee has access to their own portal, so they could upload, and it's all secure. And you keep all of that within the platform, right? Nothing going outside of that. And you put in your notes. I mean, it's fascinating.
Alerts over time, and
it gives you alerts, it gives you deadlines, and obviously in the back end, you have a huge team of compliance on their end, on the leave management platform company, that are making sure that the system's being updated according to the laws that are coming into play. So it's great. I mean, like I said, it's fast. I love it. I'm a huge believer in that. But yeah, definitely more and more. I have to be honest with organizations. They have to make an investment, but it's worth the investment. For sure.
Yeah. So, well, and you mentioned, like, don't just leave this to some random person in the organization to deal with this stuff. But I mean, the reality of, like, small businesses, like, my company's a micro small, right?
Yeah.
But even, like, I've worked in companies upwards to 400 employees, which in defense, where I work, that's still a small to getting into a medium sized company. But even at that size, you've probably got a couple HR people, but essentially it's more, you can't be, like, there's a lot of laws and stuff you got to kind of become an expert in. But it sounds like these software maybe kind of take some of that burden off as well, right? Because they're handling and making sure.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a problem. Again, you could have the best in-house leave process, for example, great, but are you keeping up to date with all the laws and the calculations? And so, yeah, that will definitely take the burden off of that. For sure. And that's where the big difference is of having a leave management platform that actually does all that for you. So, yeah, so it's very important, obviously. Yeah.
Right. And integrating, I guess, then with, like, how, like, insurance starts getting kind of complicated. And I've actually personally never had to deal with a situation where someone has to go on short-term disability, right? Well, now you've got to actually notify that and link them up and actually get the disability activated, and all those kind of things. There's a lot to that if you've never done them. Like, if I had to do that right now for my company, I wouldn't even know where to start. I know who I'd reach out to to get help. In addition to you now, that
absolutely, absolutely,
yeah.
No, obviously, going back to smaller companies. Yeah, I understand that you can't necessarily have a full team. I'm not talking about having a full team just for this function, right? But with the right process, or having that foundation in this space, in this function, it's going to go a long way. And then obviously make sure this person that I'm going to say dedicated person to HR or to that's actually taking over this, is responsible for leaves and accommodations. Are they trained? Are they engaged in the process? And if not, then yes, go to an outside consultant like myself to kind of guide you, or you could just pay for that service, right? Hey, can you just manage my leaves and workplace accommodations, which I've done for a few smaller organizations that just need that because they don't. The generalist doesn't have experience. They're very hesitant, very green in that space, and they don't feel comfortable. That's where I kind of step in and really help out the organization. So
yeah, for sure. All right, so let me tell you one of my worker accommodation stories. This was
please.
This was just crazy. So you tell me how this plays in, or maybe this will get you going on some stuff. But we had an employee, and they had legitimate, medical, psychological things going on. I think I don't know what they were. I'm not a doctor, or not that kind of medical doctor. But essentially, what happened was they started asking for accommodations without any kind of doctor's note or whatever, right? And I guess now that I think about it, we didn't have a form at the company that I was working at. So we did get that email, right? This long email about this, that, and the other, and all these things. And they have this issue and that issue, and they need to have these accommodations. And they were basically telling us what accommodations we needed to provide. Ultimately, we did come up with some type of accommodation. I think it helped. But it was a tough thing to balance. And we did have to work with like the manager on site and stuff, because we had to understand what's actually reasonable for this job and what is the job actually requiring, and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if that kind of illuminates any ideas that get your mind going.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the basics of HR, right? Documentation. What I would probably ask there, is the job description. Do you guys have a job description? Was the job description okay? Fine, no request form. Did we follow up with the employee via email, or is there some type of communication, right? Attaching the job description as well, because again, yes, to your point, doctors are more and more writing down, unfortunately, what the employee's saying. They're very I think there's a lot of risk even on the physician side, where they're just like, you know what, I don't even want to mess with it. Whatever the employee wants, we'll write this down. We'll provide it to the employer. So yes, some are outrageous where you're just like, oh, this is a no-brainer. This is not a reasonable accommodation, but that's not what the law says. The interactive process, probably what you guys were doing, maybe not formally. The interactive process is important. So that's where you have somebody from HR, the manager, the employee, you're having that conversation, that dialogue, right? Okay, now that we have your medical certification, they're specifying this is what your job actually requires you to do. And that's where you kind of, before you say no, and again, this is a lot of work. And again, helps when you have a case management platform, for example, which you're able to document all this, keep it all within one case. You got to have that conversation, and then are you providing alternatives, right? And if you still get to the point where there's no alternatives, you could always go back to the physician and really specify, look, this employee works on the floor in a manufacturing company. There's a lot of risk. The doctor may not know, right? Especially if that job description was probably not provided. And you better hope that job description provides physical demands. It provides all the details that are very important, because without a job description, the employer is going to really have a hard time trying to even provide a reasonable accommodation or even fight a case if it does go to litigation, right? And you would think job descriptions are like, every company has that. No. Even the big companies, I am amazed how job descriptions, they have job postings, but not a job description. And that kind of ties your hands with when it comes to workplace accommodations, because it is very essential to have the job description. And so I'm glad that you guys didn't just say no and, probably say,
No,
you're fired, so it's
in
good.
my opinion, we've been over backwards, and we
Yeah,
did a whole
yeah.
bunch of stuff that I thought was actually more than,
Good. Well, yeah.
way more than we even probably needed to do, and offered extra time off, and
Good.
the ability to go handle whatever things were going on, and all that kind of stuff. So I I thought we did, because I've always been a very employee focused
Right.
leader, manager, and I've always been, I think, fortunate enough to work for companies that are the same. I don't know if that was deliberate, or I think it's deliberate now in what I do, but maybe I got lucky in the beginning. But yeah, but it's tough is balancing that. What is the right amount, right? And obviously, by definition, an accommodation has to be something affordable. It can't break the business, and as small business has a lot less flexibility, obviously, than a larger company. But even still, like, I guess that's where some of the subjectivity comes in terms of what's reasonable.
Yeah. What I tell $1 million companies, like big time companies, say this undue hardship, that's really hard to sell as a reason for you not to accommodate somebody. Obviously, it's not. I'm not talking about like, the employee needs an elevator. I'm not talking about that. There are certain things that I'm just like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. If it's a $200 stand up desk,
Yeah,
you saying no, it's undue hardship. That's gonna be tough if you try to fight that in the court, right? I'm always thinking 3 steps ahead. That's my communication with leaders. And I know it's a headache. I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, this is easy stuff. But you have to be consistent. That's the other part. Are you consistent? And again, that's where you having a process in place, the foundation is strong. That's going to really set you up for the situations if it does go through the legal side of things, and at least you're able to show, hey, look, we've been very consistent with our employees. 6 months, no more than that. We try to accommodate. Who knows, right? There's all kinds of. But as long as you're showing that you're trying to accommodate one way or another, have that dialogue, that's important. And that's where a lot of companies are getting sued because they don't have that.
They're not building the relationship, right?
Exactly.
I mean, active listening comes into that. It's just being able to hear and somebody feeling understood, right?
Absolutely.
They're asking for certain things. There's a reason behind any of it. I got to wonder, like, there's that kind of theory X, theory Y, or people at work because they have to and they need to be essentially coerced and manipulated into doing a good job, or are they there because they like that? And I believe it relates into motivation, and people have psychological needs that if they're satisfied, then they'll have higher quality motivation. It's not something that has to be extrinsically or externally forced or created, but having those dialogues and building the relationship to make sure you understand what's really at the core of it. I got to think that despite, I bet a lot of leaders or companies might default to thinking, kind of assuming bad ill intention, right? Oh, they're just trying to take advantage of the system to get a nicer desk or something, but you can't go in it like that. Even if they are, you can't assume, you have to assume good intent and go in and try to understand. But I got to think most people aren't trying to take advantage of the system with those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, well,
unless I'm sure you maybe have seen it.
I've probably administered over 10,000 cases in my career already. So I've seen a lot of different industries, right? Different companies, but employees, yes. Are you able to kind of see some of the red flags on my end, for example? But we still have to go through the process, right? Luckily, what I would say about managers, supervisors, at least from my point of view, maybe to your experience, I've worked with very conservative organizations that ultimately are trying to do the right thing. Whether that's like they're trying to protect themselves, all good, but at least they're trying, right?
Yeah.
And so, I advocating for employees to, okay, we're going to medically separate. Okay, we're going to give them 6 more months of benefits. So those are the type of things that I've seen organizations, and I've been part of that too, where I'm advocating for this to be kind of a process moving forward. or for this situation. Again, trying to stay consistent, but there are those unique situations.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I
that
mean,
and it can get costly, right? I mean, given a stand-up desk, I would say is actually that's getting off easy for some of these situations. You're talking about like, I had a company where we actually provided, time off, like leave. We put them on an overhead charge code, right? And that, I mean, labor that's expensive, right? You're talking getting into tens of thousands of dollars, right? Compared to a, two, three, $400 desk or something. But I gotta wonder, like, have you ever had any situations where somebody's, as opposed to saying I need an accommodation for this limitation, they're actually asking for something specific, like the lady that I mentioned. They were asking for specific things. Have you ever had any kind of outrageous kind of request, like for a massage chair or, you know, uh, I can't even imagine what people might be asking for.
oh my goodness. I mean, travel exceptions. So I need business class because
Oh, okay, first
my
class kind of, yeah.
sciatic situation is will be acting up, or yeah, the premium economy is not good enough. So business class, and yes, to your point, the doctor, you could tell the employee needs business class because of the
Yeah, well, that's
sciatic.
a that's a 2 to 3 times the cost of a ticket at that point, right? Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are ones that have come up recently in some of these
yeah.
organizations, the
But
travel
some of
exceptions.
that's legitimate. We had in one of my companies, we had that, and on the government side, when you're dealing with direct billable travel, right? There's very strict restrictions on those kind of things that you have to follow. But if you have a legitimate medical issue, I don't know about first class, but maybe getting into like a comfort plus kind of thing and be able to
Right.
justify those kind of things. Because I mean, dude, the planes are getting
No, no,
smaller and
no,
smaller in
no, no,
terms of
totally. I'm
space,
not
and I got
saying,
to think
yeah.
there's some legitimate medical. But yeah, that's I could see where that's easily sort of taken advantage of a little bit, and especially one person finds out so and so. Oh, you mean all I
Exactly.
got to
Yeah.
have is like this thing? Well, I
Hmm.
got that thing. You mean I could be
Yeah.
sitting first class?
Yeah, and that's what exactly has been happening in one of the organizations I worked for, where it
Yeah,
was
word gets
all
out.
this, yeah, word gets out all of a sudden from one specific business unit, one region. They are all of a sudden now, like, they went from like two requests to like 15
Uh,
within 2 months. And yeah,
Yeah. Well, see,
it's
and the problem with that is now it's that concern of setting a precedent, and
correct.
that
Yeah.
I've seen that in organizations where they don't want to do the right thing for one person because they're afraid of what it's going to mean as in terms of like a
Yeah,
precedent,
it's
and
tough. I'm not gonna, yeah,
that gets
it's
challenging.
yeah, being an owner of an organization or just a CHRO, I'm not saying that this is easy stuff, but obviously
Yeah.
hire people in this space will help to, like I said, have these conversations. It's very helpful, right? But it's when
Yeah.
you're bringing
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the wrong people, and I'm not talking about brokers. Brokers were very high level. They're not into the, most of them probably haven't really have done cases themselves. They just know about laws, but it's more than that, right? So there's quite a bit to this space.
Right. Well, and I found, I mean, at the end of the day, you treat people like a human, and you do your
Yeah,
best, and you
yeah,
communicate openly.
yeah,
I think you're a lot better off.
yeah, absolutely.
But there's only so much you can do in some situations, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
right now what we're seeing is just the lack of resources, and every. I'm not just talking about HR. I think just in general, people are just trying to keep up.
yep,
And like I said, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, there should be opportunity to hopefully be proactive, really have more engagement with the employee when they're going on leave, have that really one-on-one, like educate them about, some
right.
of what the whole process is going to look like. But there's no time with that when you only have one person trying to administer 100 plus cases. Like, it's a lot of work, right? And again, tools, this is where the lead management platforms do help, though, because again, cuts that
Greater
60%.
efficiency, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you're able to
Repeatability,
have some a little bit more time to actually do the human aspect, right? To actually talk to folks,
correct.
train, educate, manager, supervisor. So
Yeah, man, I'd love to. We're kind of at time at this point, but
yeah,
digging in, it makes me think more and more about like even when I was just very early in my career, just as a young engineer, and
Yeah.
You don't know much about any of this stuff yet. You're new to corporate,
Right.
to work and the environment. And one day your colleague comes in with this fancy, comfortable chair, or this fancy new desk or whatever that accommodation is, a new set of headphones or, whatever. And all of a sudden it's like out of context. It's like, well, what the heck, man? And so then I don't know. Now I'm just thinking in terms of just that importance in communication, but at the same time, it's not like you can just go blast out what their medical issue is and why they got the accommodation, right? So there's this paradox almost of like being able to communicate, but not in terms of the sensitivity of it.
Oh yeah,
and that's a tough balance. It gets into like justice, organizational justice,
no, absolutely,
fairness, right?
Oh, absolutely. But again, when you have trained HR professionals that are able to understand that and be able to be that gatekeeper of information and disclose what it needs to disclose or communicate what it needs to communicate. Yeah, it's finding that balance for sure. But it's doable. I mean, I work with great HR professionals. At the end of the day, I think we understand the basics of that type of those type of situations and what we need to say, what we don't need to say, and ultimately, like I said, we're doing what we need to do for the employee, and then we'll deal with the pushback from others one way or another. So yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Good. Well, to kind of wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity to plug anything you'd like, or if you want to share, how people can get in touch with you if they're looking for these types of services. Is there contact or something for people to get in touch?
Yeah. Right now, you can send me an email. I'm getting my website activated again. I don't know what happened, but info@LOA Mindset Solutions.net. And then regarding the website, I'm sure. I think we could probably put it somewhere here or in our.
If you I can put it in the description. Something.
Yeah, we'll put all that. And then like I said, I'm definitely available. Like I said, it could just be a consulting. If you just need to talk about it, you need me to come in and do an assessment of your entire leave and accommodation program. I'm able to do that. That's kind of what my expertise is. And even or like I said, and be able to provide those solutions that's going to work for your organization. More than happy to do it. I'm still energetic about this space. I know it's not easy. It's hard to get people engaged in this, but I'm still on a mission to try to change mindsets, right? Hence the name LOA Mindsets, one leave at a time, and start with the leaders for sure of how important this space is more than ever. So appreciate it.
Hey man, you found your interest and your passion. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Or found me. I don't know. I'm trying to by accident. So
very good. Well, again, I appreciate you being on.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.